ברוכים הבאים, צהריים טובים. אני מאוד שמח שבאתם. אני רוצה שתדמיינו לעצמכם את התרחיש הבא. מחר בבוקר אתם יושבים במשרד, יש לכם יום שלם של פגישות, אימיילים, טלפונים עד עד סוף. בקיצור, יום עמוס, יום רגיל בעבודה. פתאום יש דפיקה בדלת. מי עומדת שם? אריה סטארק, נכון, אחד מהמנהלות, העובדות, החרוצות במשרד, והיא באה לספר לכם מה? יש לה רעיון. יש לה רעיון שהולך להציל את החברה, לעזור לחברה, לקבל עוד לקוחות, לחסוך כסף, להתייעל. עכשיו, יש פה שני תרחישים שיכולים לקרות. תרחיש אחד הוא התרחיש הבא. אתם אומרים לה ככה, תקשיבי אריה, קודם כל, תודה רבה שבת, אבל עכשיו זה לא בדיוק זמן טוב. למה? כי כולנו סופר עסוקים, את יודעת את זה, הממלכה עכשיו מצב לא משהו. אולי תחזרי עוד חודש, אולי בכלל עדיף לך לבוא ולטפל בווינטרפל אקאונט, אנחנו יודעים שיש שם הרבה בעיות. אני היחיד שרואה משחקי הכס? לא, טוב מאוד. או התרחיש הבא, היא באה ומספרת לכם, תקשיבו. מהיום הראשון שהגעתי למשרד, קיבלתי הדרכות והסברים על איך אני צריכה לפעול כשיש לי רעיון בשביל הארגון. לא רק שקיבלתי הדרכות, אבל כבר השתמשתי במידע ובבסט פרקטיס שקיבלתי פה בשביל לפתח את הרעיון שלי. ולא רק זה, אני גם לקחתי והזנתי את הרעיון למערכת איסוף וניהול רעיונות, מה שאנחנו קוראים בניהול חדשנות ארגונית, Innovation Repository. אוקיי? אז רק שאני ידע, אם אפשר להרים יד, מי נמצא בתרחיש הראשון? שולחים את אריה הביתה. אוקיי, כמה מכם? מי נמצא בתרחיש השני? המערכת כבר קיימת. אוקיי, וכל השאר איפשהו באמצע. בסדר גמור. אז עוד פעם, אני רק רוצה לבדוק, רק שנבין, מי פה כיום עובד בסטארט-אפ? תרימו יד. משהו כמו רבע מכם. אני מניח מזה שהשאר, אני לא הייתי חזק במתמטיקה, אבל אני מניח שהשאר בארגונים אחרים. מכירים? לא, מקווה שאתם לא בארגון כזה. אז השאלה שנשאלת, איך אנחנו עושים את זה? אם הרוב של האנשים בעצם עובדים בארגונים שהם לא סטארט-אפים, איך אנחנו לוקחים את ה-best practice מעולם הסטארט-אפ, את ה-lean סטארט-אפ, ומתאימים אותה, את הדבר הזה, בארגונים גדולים. אם זה Enterprise, אם זה SMB, אם זה ארגונים שהם לא למטרת רווח, עדיין אנחנו רוצים להביא את החדשנות לארגון. אז כמה מילים על עצמי, קודם כל נעים מאוד, או כמו שאומרים איפה שאני מגיע, גדי, אני באתי לפה מאוסטרליה לפני 15 שנה, ככה נראו החיים שלי לפני שהגעתי לארץ, אז באמת שינוי קטן, ומה שעשיתי עד לפני זמן קצר ב5 שנים האחרונות, זה הייתי ה-Innovation Evangelist של אמדוקס. מישהו פה לא מכיר את אמדוקס? יד למעלה? איזה כיף, כולם. ובזמן הזה היו לי שני כובעים. בכובע אחד הייתי ה-Internal Consultant, יעצתי בתוך אמדוקס, גם באמדוקס וגם ללקוחות של אמדוקס. אמדוקס חברה גדולה, 25,000 פלוס עובדים, כמעט אין מקום בעולם שאמדוקס לא נמצאת בו. יעצתי על איך אפשר לקחת וליישם חדשנות ארגונית, גם בתוך ארגונים שונים בתוך אמדוקס וגם ללקוחות של אמדוקס. וזה אומר גם לעזור לבנות תוכניות של חדשנות, אבל גם לספק תוכן כמו סדנות Design Thinking. מישהו פה מכיר Design Thinking? משתמש ב-Design Thinking? יפה מאוד, אם אתם לא מכירים, מומלץ בחום לבדוק את הנושא. יש כמה טדים מאוד יפים לגבי זה גם. פה אנחנו בסדנת מנהלים בכירים שארגנו ל-200 סמנכ"לים באמדוקס, ב-Design Thinking. מצאנו 10 נושאים קריטיים לאמדוקס באותו זמן, וארגנו סדנאות ל10 צוותים ותחרות ביניהם, למצוא את הפתרונות הכי טובים. ומה שיפה ב-Design Thinking, ואגב, אחד מהדברים שאני רוצה שתיקחו מפה כ-takeaway, זה ש-Design Thinking בא ואומר, אחד מהבעיות הגדולות בחדשנות בארגונים גדולים, זה שאנחנו בארגונים האלה לגמרי נעולים על מהי הבעיה. האמת שיותר גרוע מזה, אנחנו גם נעולים על מה הפתרון. אבל לפחות בוא נבדוק את עצמנו ונראה מהן הבעיות האמיתיות. יש את הסיפור על חכמי חלם, עם הגשר, אתם מכירים אותו? יש גשר רעוע, וככל שמגיע לחלם, כן. לעבור לאנגלית. So I was asked to switch to English. So a quick recap. We started off, no, I'm kidding. If you followed, I hope you followed. There'll be hopefully, I'll put this up on the web with translation. So what I've been saying is that in enterprise or large organization innovation, it's very important not to fall into major pitfalls. And that's some of the things I want to talk to you about is how to implement innovation in big organizations or even SMBs, small, even medium-sized organization, and how to make sure you don't fall into the pitfalls. So I'm talking about my background. I also today, since I left Amdocs, I consult 2 organizations on how to implement innovation in a way that's systematic and ongoing. Here I am with the leaders of Limud. Limud is an organization that works to spread the connection between Israel and Jewish communities around the world. And they have a lot of challenges today, especially in the day of BDS, as you're all familiar. So that was very interesting work that I was doing with them. And there what we did is actually look at what are the assumptions that the management brings to understanding the challenges. And we find there's a lot of assumptions there that actually take you off. I began the story of the wise guys, these Chachmei, is that wise guys in English? Chachmei Chelem, that they had a broken bridge. And when people tried to get to Chelem, they would fall through the bridge and injure themselves in the water. And the solution of Chachmei Chelem, do you know what it was? Anyone know? It was to build a hospital. Okay, so just a little idea about root cause analysis and how you need to do it. Here is just a picture of some of my students. I had the privilege of teaching at the Technion, the MBA program, the startup MBA program, and also at Ben Gurion University for their undergraduate course. There's a thirst for knowledge on how to manage innovation in companies. In startups, it's quite obvious. The startups would not get through seed, they would not get through round A, round B, if they didn't have inbuilt innovation in their idea. In big enterprises, in companies, in organizations, it's much less obvious because there, the company is making money and everything is seemingly fine. It's only when the startup comes and starts biting their ass, pardon my French, that they realize there's a problem. So what is organizational innovation? One thing, it's not ideation or rayanut in Hebrew. And a lot of people get confused and they put a lot of their emphasis on ideation, on finding ideas to solve problems. And what they don't realize, or what they don't plan for, is the day after. What do you do when you have those ideas? From my experience with lots of the companies that I worked for, those ideas go to waste. No planning, no budget has been made to take those ideas to the next stage. Anyone knows what the next stage is after creating the ideas? Anyone here? So verification, right? You have to check the ideas, make sure that they're viable. And prototyping as well, aftipus. If you don't do that, the ideas just die on the cutting room floor. And we want to avoid that. Likewise, when we talk about organizational innovation, it's not about gadgets. There's a lot of interesting lectures here about technology, about R&D, MOP. We're not talking about that. R&D interfaces to innovation management. And likewise, you have to remember innovation management is multidisciplinary. When I was working with Amdocs, we had over half a dozen departments. We had marketing, we had sales, we had internal communication, R&D, strategy. They were all involved in bringing innovation to the company. It has to be a multidisciplinary effort. Okay, so what is innovation? First of all, innovation is not creativity. Definitely not in large organizations. You need creativity to create ideas, but what's the next step after you've got the ideas? If you want to create innovation, anybody? To translate it and to implement it, right? If I don't implement the idea, nothing's going to happen. It's going to stay an idea in my head, in my employee's head. So it seems obvious, right, that we need to implement these ideas, but it's still not enough. For there to be innovation, the implemented ideas must do what? Who said create value? Nobody, okay. Yeah, give benefits. So we must get value. We must get value out of those ideas. Without that, all we have is very nice creativity, which is great. We can have great artwork and music, but we must connect it to bringing value, either directly or indirectly, to the company. And one of the excuses you will hear most often in big companies is, don't leave me alone in your mother, as they say in Hebrew. Doesn't quite work in the translation. I don't know how often you hear it. But leave me alone in your mother. We don't have time for this. And if ever you hear we don't have time, it's an excuse. Time is a question of priorities. If you don't create an infrastructure for innovation, you'll never, and make sure there's people who are actively promoting it, you will never have time and you will lose your future battles.
The original picture is with the Viking, not with this.
You're right. It's not the one. But I want to take you guys quickly through the major goals of organizational innovation. And I thank the producers and creators of Game of Thrones for that. So number one, companies have internal barriers to innovation. We know what they are. We've talked about they're not invented here. You've heard it probably in other presentations, right? We don't have time, and so forth. Managers in companies that are so busy trying to get their work done, that are pressured from all sides, will not have time for innovation, and more so, they will not have budget. It's the responsibility of the organization to create an innovation unit that will provide that budget, that will have full management support for that to remove those barriers. Tools. Guys, if I take you now into this room and say, you are all smart people, we know that. Start being creative. It will mean nothing if I don't give you the tools and the ways of doing that, right? So best practices means give your employees in your company the latest tools. One of the things that I do as part of my consultancy is provide tools in ideation, in design thinking, in how to pitch, do elevator pitches inside the company, how to train your innovation managers, because without tools, you can ask all you want, but you will never get those results from your people. Also, for big organizations that are spread, even inside Israel, when you have organizations with branches, how do you make sure everyone in a spread out organization receives the benefit of these tools and can contribute to innovation? At Amdocs, we had people sitting with their customers inside the accounts. How do I make sure that people who are naturally feel associated to the customer still give ideas that are relevant to the company and can help the company? You have to make sure that you encourage innovation locally, but you manage it globally. And there's lots of interesting ways of doing that as well. And absolutely, sir, you're absolutely right.
Incentive to
and you're right on the next slide. The incentive is super important. How many people think reward is more important than recognition in incentives? Put your hand up. Okay, so I hate to disappoint you. It's actually the other way around. If I give you a few $100s for your idea, even $1,000, you'll be happy. You'll spend the money, which is great, but you'll forget about it. If I tell you that you're going to get the award from the CEO of the company, that is going to be on stage in front of the whole company, they're going to write an article about you for the portal, that you're going to be given a budget to be a startupist, to create your own startup inside that company, believe me, that's a lot more interesting for that person than a few $100s. To know that you've just boosted their career opportunities inside your organization, they're going to be much more interested in that. Of course, I'm not saying don't reward them, but all the studies that we have done and I have seen suggest the opposite. Recognition is much more powerful as a motivator than just financial reward. So, who needs to take part in innovation? Very quickly. Firstly, the whole organization. This is something that we only understood about in the last 10 years. There was still the thought that you need to find the geniuses. I got you, and you. You are the crazy guys in the company. I'm going to put you in a room, lock you up, start being creative and produce ideas. Well, guess what? It doesn't work that way. I need to make sure everybody in the company, by the way, we found this out from quality management in Japanese automakers from the 60s, when they realized everybody from the janitor to the CEO of the company had to be involved in quality management. We understand that now in innovation. It's got to be accessible to everybody. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes that companies make is that they make innovation workshops and sessions exclusive, only for managers, only for senior managers. And that's a problem, because the guys out on the floor, in the production line, facing the customers, taking customer complaints, those are the guys you want to listen to. Those are the guys who often have the best ideas to bring your organization forward. So very important to give the opportunity to everybody in the company. I can't stress how important it is to have management backing. Okay, the kings and queens of the organization have to back the initiative of creating a best practice of innovation in the company. If they don't do it, then all your efforts will be purely tactical and not strategic. You must get them on board. You must get their support, their buy-in. And more than that, guys, you must communicate that. It's not enough that I have a tacit approval. I must broadcast it within the organization and say, the CEO, okay, your own local Bill Gates, is behind this and is pushing for this and is expecting this from you. What we did in MDocs, we went a step further and we said, when HR does an employee's yearly assessment, one of the things we want to see is how do they contribute to innovation? And guess what? They don't have to be the ones that come up with the idea. There are plenty of ways that they can contribute, and that's very important as well. So employees, these are your grassroots ideas. These are the people who are going to give you the most interesting creative ideas. Again, assuming you give them the right tools. Don't forget to involve them. And super important, the innovation manager. Okay, once this was the guy or girl that came up with the ideas, we say no. This is the catalyst. This is the carrier of the flame that lights the fire of innovation inside the organization. For a quick show of hands, how many people in their organization have a full-time role of innovation manager or have an innovation team? Just so I see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of about 40 people. Okay, slightly around 10%. So ask yourself in your organization, why isn't there a role for innovation management? It's a crucial role that without having someone responsible for that, it's just not going to happen. I'm not going to go into, we're just too short of time, I'm not going to go into all the facets that make up organizational innovation management. I'm happy to answer questions afterwards, but there are 2 things I want to tell you guys. First of all, anyone here does gardening? Any kind of gardening? Did gardening? Okay, I'll give you now the best seeds in the world. These are the super seeds that will give you great return. If I ask you to plant these seeds in sand and not water them, will anything grow? Obviously not. This is the same with innovation management. The seeds are the ideas. Even if I run ideation sessions and get the best ideas happening, unless I create a fertile ground with an innovation management system, with a way of running campaigns, with an R&R for innovation, nothing will grow. Unless I create best practices of methods and programs to give them the water, okay, to give the ways of running hackathons, to mine for patents, I will get nothing. Guys, don't get caught up with ideation. If anyone comes to you and says, we're going to do brainstorming, and they tell you that's what innovation is, a red light should light up in your head. So I want to leave you with these 5 most common innovation mistakes. Okay, I know it's a little bit BuzzFeedy, okay, but it seems to be what people remember. So first of all, don't do brainstorming. Please, whatever you do, brainstorming is the worst possible way to get ideas. There are much better, much more connected ways, connected to your stakeholders, to your customers, to your employees, such as ideation, such as design thinking. Don't do brainstorming. Get management backing. Without management backing, you'll always be staying at the tactical level. If you don't create innovation infrastructure, you're going to cause more harm than good. One of the worst things I've seen, both with my customers and whilst I was at MDocs, is that you do an innovation campaign. Anyone been involved in an innovation campaign in their company? Just a quick hand, you have been. Innovation campaign is like a sword in Game of Thrones. It's a double-edged sword. You do it right, you're going to create wonders in your company. You do it wrong, in other words, you don't provide the budget and the planning for post-campaign funding for prototyping and verification. And what will happen is you're going to create cynicism, you're going to create antagonism, and people will say, yeah, this innovation stuff, it's all nonsense. I was involved last year, I really worked hard, I gave the best idea, and guess what? Nothing happened. And I hear this from my customers over and over again. That's why one of the first things you got to do is you got to plan for the day after. You got to have a program that sees beyond ideation, beyond ideas. Number 4, no prototyping or verification. How can you know if the idea is going to succeed or not if you don't test it? There's great tools for prototyping and verification. And of course, budgeting. You must budget for implementation. One of the tools that I developed when I was at MDocs is a tool based on hot housing. And the idea says, one of the biggest problems is that post-ideation, it can take 3 months for a big organization to start investing in prototyping and verification. Why 3 months? Why? It shouldn't take more than a day and a half maximum. You can use agile methodology to run sprint teams, to bring stakeholders, to give feedback, to have go-ahead for the best ideas within a very short period of time. Guys, enterprises and large organizations cannot afford not to become lean. They have to become lean. They have to use best practices. And this is something that I believe in wholeheartedly, and I see it as my mission to bring enterprises to the way of thinking of startups, to create startup centers within enterprises. So I want to finally leave you with this slide, and even though there is no word for thank you in Dothraki, I'm going to thank you anyway. I'm here for any questions. You can find me on LinkedIn, Eli Itin. I'm also on my site. I'm happy to take questions here and outside. Guys, give yourself a round of applause. You've been fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Yes, sir.